Well, hello, that's me again. Today is September 10th. It's Sunday. It's the end of the weekend, and I decided why don't I give you something to spoil your weekend in the end to think about. And before I proceed with my commentary, I want to point out to you a very interesting discussion which is happening right now at my blog, because I posted there yesterday a very interesting presentation by one of the women, a smart woman. I don't remember her name. It was the first time I stumbled on this presentation about Ayn Rand and her writings, so to speak. And when I speak often about the issue of the mental instability and basically human degeneration of the Western elites, she, when you will see the video, she makes a wonderful intro when she says that basically many of the current American elites, including from the Alan Greenspan, who was the chair of the Federal Reserve System, and people of this nature who actually have been influenced and adore the writing of Ayn Rand. So I strongly suggest you to go there, you know, my blog, SmoothieX12 at blogspot.com, and I would suggest you to kind of read and watch the video there by this wonderful woman, and she's evidently a scholar of Ayn Rand, and that will explain to you a lot in terms of what I constantly repeat ad nauseam. Some people even complain, oh, enough about it, stop talking about it. We know that. I will not stop repeating it because it needs to be actually ingrained literally in the brains of those people who want to take out the, so to speak, electrodes of their propaganda which they sit on. So I will continue to talk about it, but this important conversation which many of my highly informed and highly educated posters on my discussion boards at my blog talk about, and I would suggest you to read some interesting things there and insights. So this is what I wanted to tell you. Now, going back to G20, which wrapped up in India, and if you remember last video, I also pointed out to Larry Johnson's post and other people's opinions, and here's my opinion, that basically G20 is becoming absolutely irrelevant. And again, the fact that Putin and Xi haven't been there, so it tells you everything you need to know about G20. And I posted it before it actually in my community. You can look up this table from 2020. Since then, actually, it's changed dramatically in favor of top three, not top three, top five economies of the world. And those top five economies of the world are China, India, and Russia. And their combined so-called GDP, gross domestic product, it dwarfs whatever G7 can produce. And so that's why I stress constantly that at this stage we now have this BRICS issue, and I'm not gonna go even about the final declaration of G20 because it's absolutely irrelevant and not interesting, and no matter how G7 tried to press with introduction of the anti-Russian condemnation about Ukraine, it didn't pass. So I mean, there's very little to talk about it. But here we are, if we look attentively at what is happening beyond G20. This is from yesterday, and as you can see yourself, RIA News reports this news, which the de-dollarization of economic ties between Russia and China has already taken place, when a Russian foreign ministry says about this. But look at the dynamics. This is astonishing. Look at this. The share of national currencies in Russian-Chinese settlements is growing at an extremely rapid pace. If at the beginning of 2022 it was about 25%, now it is already over 80%. This was stated by Georgy Zinoviev, director of the First Asian Department of the Foreign Ministry of Russia. The dynamics is just absolutely astonishing. The dollar literally, I mean, thrown out in the account settlements between Russia and China. And when you look at this, this is just indeed unbelievable. I never saw anything like this. And that explains to you is what it all means, because once the dollar is removed, and there is a talk, obviously we all know about it, about the common BRICS currency, well, it's already happening. We already see it, and this is, of course, the end of the American self-proclaimed primarily and fake hegemony, because primarily it was done through the owning of the financial and international institutions. So you have basically everything you need to know about it. And then we have to go and look at the desperate attempts of the United States to somehow change the conflict. And as you can see in Ukraine, the special military operation, as you can see yourself now, suddenly United States, as ABC reports yesterday, they found some excessive number of the attackams, and here what they say yesterday, the surplus, so to speak, of course, of which they didn't know. Of course, I'm being facetious with you here. They knew it all along, but they are so desperate that the Biden administration is likely to send Ukraine long-range army tactical missile or attackams to help it in its fight to repel the Russian invasion of its territory, according to U.S. officials. They are coming, said one official who had access to security assistance plans. The official noted that as always such plans are subjected to change until officially announced. Well, it has to be stated that the other official, of course there's never name of people who say that, because this is how Western press and media operate. They sometimes just simply make things up and pull out of their asses. But there is another official who says actually that there is no decision on that, but it makes no difference whatsoever. ATACMS is the 300, about probably up to 400 kilometer range tactical ballistic missile. It is a standard target for such air defense complexes of Russia as, for example, Buk M2, Buk M3. So they change absolutely nothing, as any other system didn't change anything. And it comes down to such ridiculous performances by people from the combined West that one has to ask the question, are they normal people really? And we will start with this, of course. We suddenly have this guy, the chief of the general staff of Imperial General Staff in London, who says that, oh my God, I almost had a nervous breakdown and emotional reaction on the Challenger being basically blown up by Russian coordinate system. And as you can see yourself, the chief of the British General Staff, Patrick Sanders, admitted to reporters that he experienced strong emotions when he saw the destruction of the British Challenger 2 tank in the Special Operations Zone. Now, as any other, so to speak, Wunderwaffe which NATO provides Ukraine, one has to ask the question, why did they decide that whatever they provide is somehow super pooper duper weapons? They are not. NATO hardware have been humiliated across the board while providing no visible effect of its introduction, and any kind of excuses when they say that, oh my gosh, the Ukrainians didn't use it properly and they don't know how to operate it. Well, it's just all probably valid arguments, but the problem is, as I already stated, those people in London and Washington, they have no clue how to design the weapon. And just to give you an example, especially when you talk about the phantom planes of British, that they used to be once mighty empire, which really wasn't that great in terms of the combined arms to start with, and for some reason they think that everything they do is so outstanding, while in reality it's not. And as you saw yourself, there's another Challenger which have been hit now. I'm pretty sure by the time I'll wrap this video there will be another which will be hit and destroyed. So, but as Russians themselves say, this is 75 tons of metal. They sit in the fields rusting there because nobody can evacuate it. So eventually Russians will pull this out and will parade those destroyed Challenger 2 with their proverbial Chobham armor as yet another, failure of the NATO military-industrial complex. And the question, of course, is that no matter how you try, no matter what tactics you try, there is an issue of the required force, and required force is calculated by the serious level staffs, be them on the brigade, division, let alone the general staffs. And British should know that basically they are militarily pipsqueak, they are nobodies. And here it is that's the phantom pain of the empire, which still thinks that it is a mastiff, while in reality it is a chihuahua. Look at this. Now Britain sends warplanes to deter Russian strikes. So now they have the UK government, which says yesterday, we will use our intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance to monitor Russian activity in the Black Sea. Call out Russia if you see warning signs that they are preparing attacks on civilian shipping or infrastructure. I mean, one has to start really scratching one's head when you think about those statements. How did they want to deter Russia to, for example, striking Odessa, because Russia will do it as she pleases if she decides to do it? I don't know. They think that they send like 2 or 4, whatever is remaining flying Typhoon Eurofighters there, and they somehow deter Russia. I mean, those people are delusional, and they really think that they live in their, whatever they live in their virtual world is somehow a reality. It is not. Nobody takes seriously British in terms of military capability. In fact, is the only reason they exist actually right now is to probably initiate some kind of the big fight between Russia and the United States, and that's it. Their contribution in this possible, God forbid, conventional fight will be minuscule, if any, let alone if they initiate the nuclear exchange. Then London will cease to exist in 20 minutes and nothing they can do. And this is what I'm talking about constantly. It is the dangerous idea of United States allowing its allies, in reality lapdogs, to have any kind of the say in NATO. And not that the United States itself is a rational player here, especially when we see what happened with Mr. Biden's latest snafu today with his press conference in Vietnam, when he was abruptly shut down by his own press secretary. And you begin to understand that who do you talk there to? I mean, there's nobody. Those people are delusional, including American top military brass. They have no clue what they're doing. And and the question is now, how far Russia will go. And I'm constantly on record, Russians are deciding now if they need the rest of the Ukraine, which I think so they don't, but however they will be trying to arrange this. We are at the end of the special military operation active phase, unless of course NATO wants to intervene, and then it's going to be the end of NATO and we have the wider war. But in reality we are in the state of the formalizing the results, military results, because actually Ukraine as such doesn't have really any kind of mobilizational potential left to field any kind of the combat effective army. And that brings us to the other thing, and the desperation on the Ukrainian side is such that, as you already know, a few days ago, actually this is today, as basically reported by very, decent Russian news outlet Rosbusiness Consulting, RBC, that the Ukrainian ombudsman believes that people with health problems can serve but not perform combat missions, but for example be at the headquarters or as part of the missile forces. Yeah, sure. In Russia, those with limited fitness can serve under contract, stated this ombudsman. But the point is, everybody knows now that essentially the Ukraine wants to remove any kind of limitations on the service service, and not in the rear, but in the front lines, because they really need personnel, because personnel is being annihilated, as I already stated, in the industrial quantities every hour as we speak with you guys here. And when you look at this overall, and then suddenly you recognize that actually North Korea, hey, no less, produced some kind of it's a diesel submarine. It has some kind of tiling, I think, and they call it tiling or rubber around it, but hey, they produced this sub, and I actually counted 10 hinges here, so that means 10 containers or 10 tubes for some kind of the tactical nuclear weapons. It's not strategic missile submarine, but evidently it is capable of carrying also the nuclear weapons. It is definitely a kind of cottage industry type sub, but nonetheless North Koreans produced this, and there you go. This is another sort of threat for whatever United States is trying to produce in the around China and the Far East of Russia. But Koreans doing their thing, and hey, you have to applaud them. They kind of produce this thing, so it might be a factor in some under some circumstances. So, but of course, I wouldn't be me if I wouldn't decide for kind of guys give you a little bit of the introduction back to the mathematical modeling and how operational planning is happening. And again, you need to understand, and I'm on record constantly, and this is actually how it all started, because I wanted to actually produce videos primarily on this issue. Is the issue, of course, of how the wars are prosecuted by the sides, especially those sides which are in sense peer or near peer, whatever the stupid Pentagon definition is, but actually match closely in terms of the military capability. And it brings us inevitably constantly around, like in circle to the square one, which is of course the operational planning, and as I already many times presented to you some lecture of Dr. Milan Vega on the issue of the operational planning, that actually the victory is always obtained, military victory is obtained on the strategic and operational level. Tactical level, I'm just simply not interested in this. I mean, there are so many shysters on the YouTube which produce those wonderful videos of explosions and all those technology flying or driving somewhere, and you are free to obviously go and watch this, but the point is obviously the operational and strategic level is a completely different game, and it requires a serious mathematics background, it requires serious military engineering background to understand what is going on. And I also posted about it that actually in the special military operation, a huge, value, a huge treasure is what we would call today the correlates of war, or war correlates, but not just the statistical data sets which are available in the open. For example, I already spoke about this before. If you go to this website, which is called correlates of war, you can see yourself that there is this resource. It's a wonderful resource in many respects, that it actually provides free data sets on the issue of the not only warfare but international affairs, because warfare is a part of the international affairs. And if you can take a look at it, for example, this is their so to speak front page, but as you can see yourself, that 2016, if you look at it, is actually they give you SINC, which is Composite Index of National Capability from 2016. You would obviously see today a very different coloring of all that, but nonetheless, sadly they operate with prior special military operation data, and in this respect it's kind of a little bit dated, But as you can see yourself, welcome to the Correlates of War project homepage. Correlates of War seeks to facilitate the collection, dissemination, and use of accurate and reliable quantitative data in international relations. And the point is that sadly not all of it which is there is necessarily very reliable. And you can go there and you can take a look, for example, at that data, which is the latest one is the April of 2022. And you can take a look, for example, at national material capabilities, and you can download all those Excel files. And so they talk about the widely used composite index of national capability. And I just wanted to tell you that, yes, these are correlates or data sets are important. Obviously, you have to understand since 2021, they changed dramatically, especially with Russia ramping up military production, and actually the whole economy is just basically expanding at the incredible rate. But the other correlates, which you will not find there, those correlates are highly classified, and those correlates are taken from such documents as the combat logs of their units and formations on the front lines, for example, and of course that this is the data on the use of weapons and performance of the units and formations of, for example, Russian armed forces in special military operation. It is highly classified, and this is what CIA, DIA, and all other NATO intelligence services are salivating on, but they will not get it. And this is the correlate which is the most important. And this correlates involve such things as mathematical expectations of the performance of weapons, for example, how many type of weapons you need to kill one or another target. They look at the spread of the, for example, shooting models. There are shooting models. Yes, I will talk about this a little bit in a little bit. And things of this nature, performance of the weapon systems. These are extremely classified and extremely valuable data. And the reason it is so valuable, and this is why NATO not gonna get it, it's not getting it. And you have to understand, obviously NATO, well, primarily United States, provides the armed forces of Ukraine with some intel data on movement of Russian troops and things of this nature. But those people in Pentagon and intel services, they do not know actual performance and actual statistic data sets on how Russian weapons and formations are used. They can see some of it, but they do not know that data. And this is crucial data because this is precisely the data, tactical and operational, which goes up to the general staff of Russia. And then, of course, analytical organs of departments of general staff, including its planning departments, develop technical requirements for the new weapon system or update of the existing weapon system, such as T-14 Armata. T-14 Armata tanks, they participated in the hostilities in the special military operation. Now, the ones which have participated, they were like something like couple dozen of them. They have been withdrawn, and it's already stated, Russia stated this openly, that yeah, electronics will be not so much updated as much as to redesign, so to speak, to properly fit the new requirements of the modern battlefield. And this happens all the time. And if you look attentively at the speed with which Russia introduces new weapons and updates older weapons, it's just absolutely astonishing. And this is the data which is so valuable. They would love to have it on the Pentagon, for example. They will not get it because, yeah, this is not just what you see. It's how your personnel operates, how it operates in the relation to the combat machines, military technology, and how much of its military technology is effective, how much it is involved. And these are all data sets. These are incredible volumes of the this information, be them, again, as already say, required forces, mathematical expectations, and of course probabilities. Everybody calculates probabilities and they adjust things accordingly. And here, for just to give you one example, and this is from the famous book. Actually, we studied our introduction to the operational research also from Yelena Venzel. It's a famous book from 1960s. It's called Operational Research. And here, just to give you example, one of the issues of pertaining the what is called the shooting models, for example, and how you calculate effectiveness and how you calculate probabilities primarily just using Kolmogorov formula, which is 24.2, which how you calculate the combined probability depending on the hypothesis. And hypothesis, of course, is different types of the use of the weapons or shooters in our case, and how you add together them when you have there, for example, not connected or connected, depending on the circumstances, type of the shooting for the weapon system. And you will know appropriate probabilities and probability of hitting the target, and you calculate it basically as the products of those hypotheses. And this is when you have actually shooters having independent events or independent hypotheses. With hypotheses which are connected, for example, is the probability of hitting the target in one salvo or one shooting event, if you wish. You have that as the basically a double integral, and which of course the function of that function of the dispersion of the projectiles or missiles or whatever you have. So, and this is what is being collected right now by Russians in the enormous quantities. I mean, just absolutely. And that is why when people say, yeah, well, it's all fine, but what is this all about in terms of the influence on the design of the weapons? Everything. This is what it gives you, that basically technological and human technological interaction, ability to design better weapon. And that is why, for example, United States tries to learn everything it can in this special military operation, but the data sets which they get, of course, they are primarily compiled by the armed forces of Ukraine, which of course 90% of it is baloney and fake, because you can see it in the those reports in the media, and those basically clown, I mean, military experts who come out and say that, yeah, you know, Ukrainians already reached the second line of defense or something like that. So when you have that data sets, it's garbage in, garbage out. That's what they have primarily. Russians have the viable information, which is streaming every second as we speak. And that will allow to design even better weapons, while already, as you could see yourself, and I was on record from the get-go, nothing escapes Kornet, let alone Vihar anti-tank guided missiles, and challengers learned it the hard way to the point of the emotional breakdown of the British general staff. And the point is, guys, and even now you can see yourself, technological gap is growing with an incredible speed, and I'm on record. I've been talking about it for a long time, and I wrote about openly that United States, NATO, basically lost the arms race. They lost it in nuclear arms race, but they lost it conventional arms race. And now those data sets, those war correlates, they allow to hone the weapons which Russia produces. And again, as I already stated, just to give you an example, Sunday we know that the Su-34s are using Kinzhal, and you will go further into this, military weapon porn, and you will recognize that, I mean, are Russian weapons better? Yes, they are better, especially such things as the standoff weapons. There is nothing there which West has even in development which compares to what Russians use now. And, what can I say? So this is what I wanted to tell you and give you a little bit of the introduction and kind of, wave a little bit math in front of you to give you some understanding. You don't need to know all of that. There is no practical use for you in knowing all of that, but it's very important for you to know about it, that it does exist, and this is what the main driver in the arms race, which Russia, for all intents and purposes, already has won. So, and that's my talk to you guys today. As always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel, and those who can afford, please support me by, supporting me on Patreon or buying me a coffee or two. And what can I say? Happy end of the weekend for you, and I'll talk to you next week, guys. So, have a nice rest of your weekend. Bye-bye.